Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio in Woodstock, Georgia. This is Fearless Formula with Sharon Cline.
And welcome to Fearless Formula Friday here at Cherokee Business Radio X, where we talk about the ups and downs of the business world and offer words of wisdom for business success. I'm your host, Sharon Cline. And today on the show, we have a father, a speaker, an author, a TEDx organizer, weekend polo player, CEO, and owner. That's one person of Mike Sena Advisors. Welcome, certified financial planner Mike Sena, to the show. Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. You know, it was supposed to rain today, and it's absolutely gorgeous out. It's warm. It's humid. It's, you know, like I mentioned before, I'm waiting for the pollen to end.
I know. Well, it'll be nice. I think tomorrow we're supposed to get some storms or something like going to be in the 50s or whatever. So we'll have the heat on again, I guess. But thankfully, we can spend a little bit of time inside just for a bit to chit chat about kind of your story. I know you've been on Business Radio X a couple different times, but thank you for spending time with me. And like, I'm grateful that you're willing to even come back on and talk about kind of like what the show's about, the Fearless Formula aspect of what you do. So I wanted to ask you, you have a book, and I thought this was so interesting to start with. Is it okay to start kind of that way? Yeah. Because I love that it's called Raise Your Hand If, because who can't sort of identify with a million different aspects of what it's like to deal with your money?
No kidding. It's remarkable. In fact, I want to redo the book, do version 2. The rest of the title is Raise Your Hand If You've Ever Done Something Stupid with Money. And I want to cross out stupid and put human.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because we all do stupid stuff, whether it's with money or not. We are human beings. We do the best we can, most of us. We're all struggle with life. We certainly all struggle with money. I don't know anybody that hasn't had some kind of problem with money, some kind of issue with money along the way. Sometimes it's the way we're raised. Sometimes it's bluntly the way we're wired. I don't know how to fix that. But money's just, it's an integral part of life, and you can use it to your advantage or your disadvantage.
When you say it's how people are wired, is there a certain type of personality that just does really, really well with money?
I wish I could define that. I don't know. I've worked with a number of folks. Kind of an interesting story. 4, 5, 6 years ago, a couple got in touch with me, this guy. And they were in the process of divorce. Their counselor referred me, which is kind of odd. So they were about 58 to 60. He made around $350,000 a year. They owned a Lincoln Continental and some really nice furniture and a $500,000 house that they leased. They had $800,000 of debt. They had 32 years of practice of spending at or more than they earned.
Wow. And
we worked for a few months to try and change the way they looked at money, the way they looked at life. It was very difficult. And ultimately, the wife she became increasingly resistant and resentful. She missed her retail therapy. I remember we had an agreement. Birthdays were coming up for their kids, and I could tell as soon as I walked in the room, they're like, well, we kind of screwed up. Yeah. Well, tell me. Well, we spent more than we should, and we had agreed on $100 or so. They spent $2,000 on present for one kid. And
wow.
Some of this is just hardwired. And I know another couple, kind of the same thing. I probably shouldn't tell this story, but it reminds me I have an older sister who she's kind of wound a little tight. And years ago, she tried to quit smoking cigarettes, and she was so nervous. After 3 or 4 weeks, her doctor told her, said, look, you'll live longer if you start smoking again.
No way.
So some people, money feeds them, and that's their life. And I think one of the hardest lessons I've learned is there are some things, a number of things I can't fix, and some things in general can't be fixed. We're only here for a brief amount of time. Make the most of what you have, and nobody knows what's coming around the next corner.
Well, let's talk about how you got into the industry. Sorry, I'm laughing because I know that you famously say that you've been fired from 2 jobs, and now you are here where you are now. So, what will you tell us a little bit about that story and the lessons you learned about being fired from 2 jobs?
Well, I was fired from my first 2 corporate jobs. And I'll tell you, the first one, I went out to Spokane, Washington to help open a cable TV franchise for Cox Cable.
Okay.
It was my dream job. And there were a number of things going on, and I thought I was hot stuff. I tell you, I'd show these yokels how to run an office, and I realized pretty quickly how little I knew. And I never saw it coming. After a year and a half, my boss invited me into the office, and he closed the door, and he says, "Let's have a drink." I said, "Okay."
Oh, jeez.
And we toasted to, "Here at the better days, I'm letting you go."
Oh, my goodness.
And I was pretty devastated. I had never been fired before. I'd been working since I was 12, doing a number of things. And it really hurt me for a while. I came back to Atlanta with my tail between my legs and got my second job that I was fired from, and I was, thank you. I really hate this. Thank you. Let me find something a little better suited for me. And I've been pretty much on my own ever since. I have created and run 4 different businesses. I was in the IT business for a number of years. I had a business partner who was the IT side. I was the business side. And the first 15 years were a ton of fun. The last 10 years, less so.
Oh.
And I started thinking about something else that I wanted to do. And one of the key drivers is I did not want employees anymore. It was just stress city. There was a lot of stress in my life with a number of married, kid,
Gotcha.
all of this stuff. And I looked at a number of different things, and I kind of stumbled on this relatively new field of fee-only financial planning and money management, which basically means I don't sell anything. I don't sell securities. I don't sell insurance. I don't sell annuities. You and I, we have a meeting of the minds. We reach an agreement. We settle on an annual fee. I manage your money, and I provide ongoing comprehensive financial planning. And I found it immensely rewarding. It took me a number of years to kind of figure the business out.
How did you do it? Where did you go first?
Well, I started on my own, and I wanted to work with younger, lesser affluent people. You know, the millionaire next door, they got bullseyes all over them. Every financial advisor, insurance agent, annuity guy or gal, that's who they're going after. And I said, well, I'm going to go after another crowd. And everybody that knew anything about my business told me I would never make any money. And I'm like, here, hold my beer. Well, they were right. There's no way to serve younger, lesser affluent people without selling them insurance or annuities. And it just wasn't my thing. So I stumbled for a number of years. I went through a pretty long, devastating divorce, ended up finished raising my son. And there was a lot going on with that. And there was a lady I knew in the fee-only financial planning community named Bobby Monroe. Lovely woman, smart as a whip. Knew her from Atlanta. She had moved to Florida, north of Tallahassee, a little town, Havana, Florida. And I called her up one day and I said, what do you think about combining our 2 practices? And we talked about it, and we did. And I worked for her for about 5 years, and I learned a lot. And in the end, we were not a good fit. I left and started Mike Sena Advisors. She's still down in Florida doing her thing. Very grateful to her. There's another guy here in Woodstock named David Holstrom, who I got to know. Do you know David?
I do. I've heard his name before anyway.
I will tell you, everything good I learned about financial planning, money management, David was instrumental in. He's one of the smartest guys I know, and he's eminently ethical. A prince of a guy. And it kind of goes back to what you and I were talking about a little bit earlier, the community here of Cherokee County and Woodstock. David and I are direct competitors, but I would be happy to send him a client that's not a good fit for me. And I think the world of him, would be happy to help him in any way I can, because he helped me in the first 6-8 months of trying to figure out what I was doing.
It's nice when you sort of look back and see that there are people, like we talk about this on the show all the time, about surrounding yourself with the right people, having the right support. But even your beginning on this journey with Bobby, right? To be able to have her have faith in you, to be able to take you on. And I think that's says a lot about your work ethic as well, someone who's already in it, and they're willing to kind of take you along. I love that. I mean, it sounds very Like you're almost altruistic. Let me help you. You help me. We all win. There's plenty for everyone.
There is an air of abundance wherever you might be. And it's, so much of life, it comes down to mindset. I'll digress a little bit. There was a book I read about 8 years ago called Mindset, written by a lady named Carol Dweck, and it was a changer for me. It was like flipping a switch. She talked in the book about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset and making that transition. And I was kind of halfway in between, but actually reading and understanding how a growth mindset enables you to continue to grow and yet have fun along the way. You learn from your mistakes. You just kind of keep going. It's like we talked about before. We're all human. Mm-hmm. We all screw up. Mm-hmm. We all make mistakes. We all have mistakes that we wish we could go back and redo, but that's just a pleasant fantasy. All we can do is just deal with what we have today and move on.
So there's some people that seem to be more amenable to growth all the time and have sort of this attitude of there are no mistakes, they're just learning, It's like, well, now I know how not to do something, and it's so positive and such a great framing of it as being not something to judge yourself by. But I always feel like I'm like in a bit of a survival mode and like not really thinking, or if I'm growing, it's because I'm like really forced to grow. And I kind of like the idea of being able to frame it as something that's like actually a very natural, healthy thing to be doing rather than, no, I don't want to go through this.
Well, I hear you. And there are times it's nice to be comfortable. But in the end, comfort is not where life is. And I've had, like it or not, I've always enjoyed figuring things out on my own. I haven't fit into anybody's mold. I can't deal with the politics of corporate life. Being in the IT business, I learned an awful lot, but in the end, managing employees, it just became very stressful and a pain in the rear. And I can't even fathom today having 15, 20, 30, 50 employees that you're having to deal with. I went to Greece for Christmas. I had a wonderful time. I had a friend that was over there, and we met a friend of his who owns 4 burger joints and an Italian restaurant. He's got 400 employees. And it's universal, the same thing. We can't get people to show up. They want more money. The government wants this. And it was...
The personalities, too.
Yes. It was the same thing. And I just love what I'm doing now. Like I said, it took me a number of years to kind of figure out this business. And one of the things that has been most beneficial is understanding who is a good fit for me.
It's actually one of my questions.
And who I'm a good fit for.
Well, before we say that, I wanted to ask you, what do you think the aspects of your personality that make this so successful for you?
To me, it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together without the top. I love solving problems, and I've done that my whole life. And actually getting to know somebody, number one, first and foremost, understanding what's really going on in their life, what's really driving them. Early on in this business, I would ask a prospect, how are you thinking I could help you? And it was amazing how many times they really didn't know. And this notion of learning to ask the right questions in the right order and being patient and listening, that's a whole other thing. You and I talked a little bit about that when we met a few weeks ago. I wish I had that skill set when my son was younger, but I've learned to listen much better, and he and I had a meaningful conversation. I just listened for 45 minutes and let him it changed the nature of our relationship.
Created a safe space for him to feel and be. Mm-hmm.
And one of the other things I've learned, if you're a really good listener, people will think of you as a terrific conversationalist, and you really don't have to say anything.
Oh, that's good to know. I don't have to speak that much on this show then.
Well, you're the leader.
No. Oh, nice. Really? All right. Just for like 30 minutes or so once a week do I lead anything. Who's your ideal client?
That's a good question. And I wish I can define it on paper who I'd like to work with, but the bottom line is in my business, it's highly personalized. It's very boutique. there is an emotional and an intellectual connection. Generally, to start to have the conversation, typically married, couple of kids, one spouse owns a business, there's a comfortable six-figure income, there's at least $500,000 or more of investable assets. That kind of sets the table that we can actually proceed going forward. I do have clients that have much less that are younger. I love working with younger people. It's just got to be the right fit, and it takes a number of conversations to kind of figure out if we're a good fit or not. I've had a couple of folks that I would like to work with, but as we talk more and more, one of the things I do know is I don't want a co-money manager.
Oh, you don't want to be micromanaged for yourself?
And somebody that is open to implementation of different strategies that will make a difference in their life. One of the things I focus on that kind of turns some people's heads, even though I'm a financial planner, and I believe very strongly in planning for the future, I try to get my clients to focus on the present and making the most of what they have. If COVID, the lockdowns have taught us anything, is nobody knows what's coming around the corner. And I've had some financial planners that we would kind of get into a little tiff over. They would do these incredibly gorgeous 30, 40-page financial plans that are minutely detailed. In 12 years, we're going to plan a wedding, and in every 7.5 years, we're going to buy a car. And I'm like, that's just a bunch of crap. I typically go out about 5 years, detailed plans. The rest is a little more gauzy, and we'll see what happens.
Because life is so unpredictable that way, right?
Life is very unpredictable. I never expected to be where I am today, 15 years ago. I imagine the same for you and probably 95% of the people listening to us.
That's kind of interesting aspect of business ownership here. Even in Woodstock, the people I've had on the show talk about how, I didn't know, like even we were talking earlier, bananas and beehives, and how they didn't know that they were going to have to wholesale to be successful, and it was just not even on their radar, and now they are, but that they're really happy, so there must be an element of flexibility, I suppose, with life in general, but also with you, I was thinking regarding money, people are so emotional, and how do you deal with people's emotions that are so tied?
It's been a learning process.
Because you're a problem solver. You're analytical, the way I think of how you say you could put a puzzle together. I
am. I'm your typical left brain introvert. And learning to be more open. And we talked about this notion of vulnerability. There's a little of that. But getting people to open up about what's really going on inside their lives. And it's hard to peel back these layers. It is like an onion. And
have them trust you, right? Like have them be willing to kind of share that vulnerability, especially when it comes to what they can build their lives on, money.
I had a relatively new client. This unfolded over several months. And he fits the bill all the way down the line. Love this guy, love his wife, terrific people. They've done very well in life, and they have lived their whole life kind of the millionaire next door. They have lived on less than they've earned. They've made smart investments. They're fine. And he had a pretty large portfolio with Fidelity Investments. They were managing it for him. In the end, what he wanted, if something happened to him, he wanted his wife to have something more than an 800 number to call. So he asked me to review his portfolio, and I took a few days and I went through it. And I went back to him and I said, look, it's not really the way I would do it, but there's nothing wrong with this. If you do nothing, you'll be fine. And I think that kind of clinched the deal for him. And
you didn't make up a problem.
Well, there really wasn't one.
But some people would, right?
Yeah. I mean,
here's how I could help you and be valuable to you.
The main benefit I bring, I tend to be local, and somebody that that you see, and it's not an 800 number. There are any number of ways to get financial advice. There's what's called robo-advisors, where it's all artificial intelligence, so to speak. And there's an algorithm that manages it, and it's pretty inexpensive. It works well for younger people that have limited budgets. My clientele tend to want a little more than that, and I delve pretty deeply into estate and legacy planning. That's a difficult conversation for most people really just coming up with a term. Estate. Nobody likes estate. Some legacy planning or whatever it might be. But having these conversations now while you can makes a world of difference. And trying to facilitate these difficult conversations. I spend a lot of time on tax planning. I spend a lot of time on insurance review, even though I don't sell insurance. If you need it, I'll get the right policy for you, and you'll damn well know how it works and how much you're paying for it. A story that I love, one of my early clients, lovely couple, relatively young, they made very good money. They were immigrants from Kenya. And one of the things I loved about them, they got America. It's just like, wow, okay, let's go. So their two objectives. First and foremost, they wanted their kids to go to Harvard or Yale, and they wanted to have money for their parents back home. And we started that conversation from that perspective. But as we got a little deeper, it turned out the husband had purchased a rental property, a home, in 2006. 2008, the economy slides into the abyss. They're upside down on this home, and it's what's called, notice, cash flow negative. They're paying more than they're getting in. A lot of stress in that marriage. And we talked for a couple of years about it, and they made good money. They had enough money to actually get rid of the house, put some money in it, take the loss, move on. But they were reluctant to admit the mistake.
Oh, man.
And I kind of flipped it on them, and I said, look, they really only needed about $30,000. They were going in the hole about $300 a month. I said, if I could show you an investment that would guarantee a 12% return for $35,000, would you take it? Well, yeah. Put it into this house, sell the house, and get out of it and get on with your lives. And I will say their marriage dramatically improved.
How much do you see that of, the financial stress? I mean, isn't that like number 1 or 2 of reasons for marriages not working?
It's a huge deal. But part of this is the dynamic between the husband and the wife, and bluntly trying to figure out, who's really making the decision. I'm going to tell you, almost all the time it's the wife, it's the woman. And it's amazing. I don't want to get into gender politics, but women have an enormous amount of power and control. There was one of my early clients we've been together 12 years or so, and whenever there's a husband and wife, I try to have confidential conversations with each one individually, kind of get a feel for where each of them are. And the husband's going, I wish you could get Carolyn on the plan. She won't stay on the plan. And she's like, I wish you could get him to just lighten up and enjoy life a little. So they were an interesting couple. I've done a number of really good things for them over the years. They're doing quite well. They were spending too much money. They were used to making a lot of money, but they were spending too much of their retirement. And in some circles, this is almost a 4-letter word. We ended up doing a reverse mortgage on their home to free up some cash-free money. They don't have any kids. They had roughly $800,000 of equity in a home that they couldn't tap. They were taking too much money out of the retirement account. They were getting creamed on taxes. So that kind of flipped their world a little bit. And I hate this term too, but they sleep much better at night.
Those are good sort of, what are they, euphemisms, phrases? You get the energy behind them, but it makes sense.
It really, that's all that it comes down to is sleeping well at night, feeling comfortable. And I try to get people to feel comfortable about an unknown future. And once again, going back, make the most of what you have and live in the present, because that's really all that counts.
Well, if you're just joining us, we are speaking with Mike Sena of Mike Sena Advisors. What do you think is the biggest misconception of your industry? Or maybe even, what do you think people are so reluctant to do? Like, what are their reluctances that they won't come see someone like you?
There's a number, but I'm going to say first and foremost, I don't know anybody that hasn't been screwed by a financial advisor, and typically insurance agents or stockbrokers. And I know a lot of fine insurance agents. I know a lot of fine stockbrokers, but they make their money on selling a product or a transaction. And one of the things I tried to explain to people is Wall Street, so to speak, is no different from Johnson & Johnson, General Motors, or DuPont. It manufactures financial products to sell. And there's a home for pretty much everything they manufacture. Generally not your home. And that's where people tend to get into trouble. And the insurance industry, the annuity business, it's almost designed for planned obsolescence, so that 10, 12 years down the road, as your life changes and this particular product really doesn't fit you as well, it's, oh my word, we've got a wonderful new product, let us roll you into it. Mm-hmm. And I get really bent over particularly insurance agents that they will swear up and down, I don't collect a fee. It's a commission. Well, the client doesn't pay me, the company pays me. Well, the client's paying the company. And I've gotten into it from time to time. I was at a networking meeting some years ago. There's a guy that sells a product called indexed universal life insurance. It's not a bad product. It fits some people very well.
I don't even know what all that means. I'm trying to understand all those words put together.
That's another thing. There's a lot of jargon and a lot of people try to speak above. And going back to women, I hear this over and over again. The women is dissed in the conversation. The wife is left out most of the time. And I find that
disheartening.
Well, disheartening is a nice way to put it, but it's wrong-headed. And it's anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But this guy got up and pointed to me across the table. This man is going to charge you a fee.
You were the bad guy.
Anyway, one of my common refrains, there is no free lunch.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is for everyone to win.
Yeah, I have no problem with a lot of this, but so much in the insurance and annuity industry, the fees are hidden. It's very opaque. It's osmosis, getting money out of your pocket into their pocket, and nobody, it's like
osmosis. You don't even see
frictionless.
It, right? Yeah.
Wow. The other thing is that you have to have a lot of money to work with an advisor. And it helps, but that's not always the case. I'm always willing and eager to have a conversation with someone. They may or may not be a good fit, but I'm always happy to answer questions. And sometimes it's a good fit, younger, lesser affluent people. Sometimes it's not. I think those two things, that if you don't have money, you really can't. And
that's a misconception.
Everybody's gotten bad advice or sold a product that they wish they hadn't.
Do you feel like now you are approached more by younger people? It's more you're more likely to over the years that you've been in this industry? What changes have you seen as you've gotten into it?
A lot of changes. It's we went through 2008.
Yes.
The economy slid into the abyss. A lot of people got hurt.
Yes.
Pretty bad. A lot of people got disillusioned. One of the things that I deal with younger people is this enormous burden of college debt. So many times, me and so many of my colleagues, we wish we had a time machine. We could just go back 10 years. Let's not do it this way. Mm-hmm. I don't have a really good answer for that, but I can tell you, if you can't get a job, taking on more debt to get a master's degree is not your answer. There are any number of ways to earn a living, and you've got to be flexible. There's a guy that I have listened to over the years. You may have heard of him, Dave Ramsey. He's made a fortune, and most of his advice is pretty spot on. I don't agree with everything, but one of the things that I learned from him is your present situation isn't forever. Like if you're trying to get out of debt, buy a piece of crap car, drive it for a year. And a year down the road, you move up. And in 3 years, you'll be able to buy a new car. Your present situation isn't the rest of your life. And so many times, kind of the focus of your show, the fear,
yes,
being resilient, you're in a bad spot and you see nothing positive going, but you have to get those legs moving. You've got to formulate a plan and you've got to implement it one step at a time.
I had spoken to a different financial advisor at one point about young people and how, I really feel that there's a disservice that's done to people who graduate school and graduate college, and they really don't have a really good grasp on how to manage money from the very beginning. What do you think of that?
There's been a lot of talk about bringing financial literacy into the public school system.
That's a great way to say it, financial literacy. Yeah.
And part of my thing is careful what you wish for. There's a number of things that have been introduced to the education system that has not worked out well. Ultimately, this comes from the home. And I think some of it, I touched on before, is hardwired. And I hope my son isn't listening, but I will never forget this. He was 4 years old. He had some birthday money. We went to Walmart to buy something specific for him. And Walmart was out of it. They didn't have it. But that money burned a hole in his pocket. He had to spend it. He had to spend it. And to a degree, he's that way now. So it's not so much financial literacy, but it goes back to mindset. And people that generally have money, you can divide people into a lot of different categories. I tend to divide in people that think about spending money, people that think about making money. And if you think about spending money, you will never have any wealth. If you think about making money, you will eventually generate wealth over time.
And you don't know when you're meeting someone with which mindset they have about
you can
right?
figure it out pretty quick, and sometimes you can change it, sometimes you can't. One of the things Dave Ramsey talks about that I love, you're sitting in a bucket of poop, and it's, it's awful. It's your poop, but it's comfortable. You're familiar with it. You have got to be in more pain than the pain it takes to change. You've got to be fed up. And I don't care what addiction you have. You've got to reach a point that, Howard Beale from the movie Network, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. You've got to get mad as hell and change and find the courage to change and take it a step at a time and see something in the near horizon that is better than what you have now and stay focused on that. Because
there's always the instant gratification, right? That just there this is. Minute, Yeah.
Some people can't get over that. It's a crack habit. It's alcohol. It's gambling. It's porn. It's any number of things. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. You've got to find a way to change your environment. Sometimes change your friends. Sometimes change your room. You've got to focus on what I call cognitive therapy and introduce a new thought to replace the bad thought. That takes work. And I've been very fortunate in my life. I've had a number of terrific mentors. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs a mentor. And typically, the mentors I've had, we've helped each other over the years. And you just got to want something more different than what you have. It sounds simple, but it's really hard for a lot of folks.
How did the pandemic affect your business? Did it affect your business?
Well, it did. Pretty lucky with that, and that I worked from my home. Most of my clients were fine. One of the things I will tell you is periods of great stress are wonderful drivers for financial advisors to get new business because people are freaked out. Whenever you move somebody from a position of comfort to discomfort, they're going to be looking for something.
A safety net.
Something that will make them comfortable again. And for the most part, the pandemic helped my business pretty enormously. What we're going through now, a lot of people kind of freaked out. What's going on? To me, look, we're living in the twilight zone. I can't make heads or tails of half of what's going on in our country. But what I try to get people, again, to focus on is, number one, control you and yours. Stay focused on your situation. Once you kind of got that underhand, then branch out locally. Get involved locally. If you want to get involved locally first. Help nonprofits or, become a party chairperson, whatever your flavor is. But start out kind of like pebbles on a pond. Before you try to become benevolent dictator for a day, take care of your own home.
I love that you talk about starting locally because that's what we were talking about before the show, and you touched on a bit how great Woodstock is, because everyone really does have, everyone that I haven't interacted with, I've not had one moment where I haven't felt like they were really interested in what I do and how they can help me. And I feel the same. And it's just been really encouraging because I don't feel like I'm alone. Even though I am alone in my business, it still feels like I have resources and people. And when I go down into downtown Woodstock, I often see someone I know. And so I feel like I have a little family and support. which it comes from a true place. It's not just lip service. And I appreciate that about our town. And like you said, knowing that you have two people competing in the same industry, but you really do want to see each other succeed. There's like the energy behind that is for good for everyone, you know?
It is. This is a wonderful community, Cherokee County, city of Woodstock. There is a vibe and an energy that flows. I wish I could tap into it more, but I've really enjoyed getting to know a number of business people. I know the previous mayor, Donnie Enriquez. I knew the current mayor, Michael Caldwell. Think the world of Michael Caldwell. In fact, I doubt I'll embarrass him, but one of my favorite stories, his father, Mark Caldwell, did a presentation at the Circuit, which is a co-working space and a community center in downtown Woodstock. And Mark Caldwell was talking about how to raise money for a business. And he went through the whole thing, friends and family, 401k, venture capital, angel investors, all of that stuff. And he was talking about his sons, Michael and I don't know the other one, but he would make them stand in front of the mirror, I think like once a week, raise their hand, repeat your name. I am responsible for the decisions I make and the consequences therefrom.
Oh, dang.
And I got to tell you, that is right up my alley. I love that. And you got to hand it to Michael. He's a wonderful man, and he's very accomplished. He's got a lot going for he and his family, and I enjoyed getting to know his dad, who has done quite well over the years. Terrific family, terrific people, and there's just a lot of that in Cherokee County.
Yeah, I like to blame other people for my problems.
You can do it, but
it's not very empowering.
Not going to get you anywhere.
I feel better for the moment, the instant gratification. So what was it about? Did you have any times when you were kind of getting into this industry that you did have those sort of natural feelings of, I don't know what I'm doing? Or, I think about people who are listening who have their dreams and maybe want to become a financial advisor, but have sort of those feelings that maybe they don't know enough, or they're not, there are too many people in the industry. I'm never going to be able to compete. Well, how did you manage your emotion around that?
There were really two things, but I've just learned to keep going. Part of it was going through the divorce and trying to raise my son. There was a lot of stuff going on. And you and I might have touched on that when we met a little bit. But I felt I've never really felt a failure in business, but I felt a failure as a husband, a failure as a father. And that was the toughest thing to get over. But I had no choice. I had to make some money. I had to figure it out. I twice thought about going back to the IT business, which would have been very easy, but I didn't want to do that. I hate going backwards. I'd rather go forward. And anybody thinking about getting into the financial advisory business, and I would say any business, but what I didn't really understand getting into it is how much of it is people-related, sales-related, communication-related. It doesn't make any difference how smart I am or how well I manage money. In the end, if I'm not able to connect with people in a way that makes them feel comfortable and draws them to me, I'm not going to be successful. And that was my biggest obstacle, was figuring out how to connect with people on that kind of level.
Was it was trial and error then for you? Because really, we talk about this on the show all the time. The business is people. You're dealing with people. And that's part of why I like the show, because when we have people on the show, they don't talk about just being part of Diesel David. What's Diesel David? Well, when you get to know who these people are, it's really nice to be able to identify someone's motivation and personality and kind of have an energy as opposed to just a logo or a name.
Well, the businesses I had before, bluntly, we did very good work. We had a wonderful reputation. We really didn't have to sell. And generally, we turned as much business down as we got. And I got into a business. I was naively thinking, if you build it, they will come. Well, they weren't coming. It's like, where are they? Don't they know me? Don't they
think
they know how great I am? So I certainly misjudged that. And a lot of it was mindset work and learning how to communicate, really learning how to listen made a big difference. And some people are more gifted on what I call the sales side. And I know a number of advisors, they offload a lot of their work, but they are wonderful rainmakers, connectors. They know how to bring the business in. And that's something I've never really been good at. But I've learned, and so far I'm getting better. I just want to get better each month.
It's nice you even have like monthly goals as opposed to like, what's your 5-year plan? You're like, I just want to have a good month.
Well, I got plan A, B, C, and D. So I try to get people to be flexible with their plans. But I just a little better today than I was yesterday. And again, I am involved in a couple of peer-to-peer mastermind groups, which are enormously helpful. I recommend any business owner get involved in some kind of group where it's very safe to talk about what's going on in your business. And others we all have the same problems, a little different depending upon the nature of your business, but it all comes down to, particularly these days, people. When I first kind of got into the business, it was more transactional, but it's become very much about people and very much it's highly personalized. And I've kind of built this into this personalized boutique practice. And I'm not for everybody. Everybody's not for me. Like I said, there's a number of different ways that you can go about having financial help from different sources. I don't recommend you Google it. But some people do. Some people do. Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, Clark Howard, there's any number of people. They're really, really good with generic advice. Where I make a difference is mine is very specific and very personal.
Do you find that your clients are sort of your friends too for over time?
Yeah. It's
it's like you're doing life together in some aspects.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is. It's I have a guy that helps me in the back office with invoicing and onboarding new clients and stuff, and we talk periodically. And he remarked yesterday, he goes, "You know an awful lot about these people." It's like, well, I want you to know too, in case I get hit by a bus. So I want you to be able to offload to the correct people to be sure there's no interruption in their situation.
I have one final question for you. What do you do regarding marketing? Do you find that you need to?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. Some people don't. They just put one ad on Facebook Marketplace or Facebook, whatever it is, Cherokee Connect, and that's plenty to get the ball rolling for them. But I was wondering, what do you do? How do you stand out amongst your competitors, I suppose?
Well, I will say I have spent an enormous amount of money and gotten very little results, depending upon different things that I've tried. LinkedIn's been a pretty good avenue for me. I do a video every month. And I had a gentleman before COVID that produced videos for me. They were wonderful. We would go to a venue and we would shoot 8 or 10 videos, and then he would produce them. We'd roll them out one a week. And
hooray.
Once COVID came, that all went away. And I, talk about fear and overcoming fears. I finally got over my fear of the iPhone. I just started doing iPhone videos.
Yourself?
Myself.
Well, how about that?
And I will tell you, at first it was fine. And then, over time, I needed to learn how to edit the videos a little bit. And then I need to add subtitles. So what became, 5-10 minute kind of fun process became a 45-minute pain in the rear. And I've got a new woman that is helping me with videos. So far, I'm very pleased with what she's doing. And we're rolling them out, every Monday around noontime. I put a new video up. And I try to post some other stuff during the week. And I network a lot. I'm involved in these peer-to-peer kind of groups. I tell you, you never know where a conversation will lead. And I got several clients from a single conversation at a mastermind group at the National Speakers Association of Georgia, like 4 years ago. Just one conversation led to about 4 clients that came in. And it was, you never know.
Well, I'm going to take away from this conversation with you that it's important to not think that comfortable is safety.
It's
right?
not.
Feels like safety, but it's not really safety. And to be flexible and be willing to grow, because those are things that I resist unless I'm forced to. But I really appreciate, like you said, the framing of it as being something, well, that's not where life really is. And I've never really heard it phrased that way. So it kind of hit me in a good way today. So,
well, cool.
Well, I do think too, when you're having those moments of difficulty and you're trying to survive, like in those survival modes, you do kind of whittle down what's really most important to you, because you can't handle everything. And so sometimes I do a tremendous amount of growth in my darkest times. So I like the notion of that, because I always want to be comfortable and safe, but maybe that's not always the best thing for my spirit.
Well, I'll leave you. Great adversity leads to great innovation.
Oh, I could have said that in 2 seconds. The whole thing I was just saying just now could have been like nicely wound up in that. I like that ism much better than what I just said. Well, Mike Sena, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story. It's been really fun for me.
Sharon, me too. Thanks a bunch. Look forward to doing it again.
Okay, we'll check in again. And thank you all for listening to Fearless Formula on Business Radio X. And again, this is Sharon Cline reminding you, with knowledge and understanding, we can all have our own fearless formula. Have a great day.